So I want to speak tonight about Upekkha as a Brahmavihara, giving you some context. Upekkha as a Brahmavihara is very different than Upekkha as a mind state that we develop in Vipassana practice. So please don't be confused by this. There are 10 different kinds of equanimity. Upekkha as a Brahmavihara is one of the 10. So Upekkha as a Brahmavihara is very specifically equanimity as related to other beings, as opposed to equanimity about all formations, which is what we cultivate in Vipassana. When we have Vipassana equanimity that's strong, of course, Upekkha about beings is included as a subset of that. But if we have strong equanimity as a Brahmavihara, it doesn't assume we have equanimity about anything else. So this is a very specific subset of equanimity about all formations. And as a specific cultivation, it's described in the Visuddhimagga as the fourth of the four Brahmavihara cultivations, the Brahmavihara practices. As I mentioned this morning, traditionally, Upekkha is cultivated after the other three are fulfilled. So when cultivated for both the sake of the Brahmavihara and the sake of the concentration, we attain jhana, successfully cultivating metta for all beings, or individual categories and then all beings. Same with karuna, same with mudita, and then only do we cultivate upekkha. Visuddhimagga states it this way: the Brahmavihara of equanimity is the outcome of the first three Brahmaviharas. However, we're not cultivating equanimity for the sake of the equanimity and the concentration, but more for a general attitude of equanimity towards all beings. In this case, it's quite possible to jump to equanimity after having done a little bit of Brahmavihara practice or quite a lot of metta practice. But the more of the other three Brahmavihara practices you've done, the easier it will be. Equanimity comes into the foreground naturally after we have seen the attachment that results when we cultivate metta, karuna, and mudita, the attachment to outcome that results. So as a specific mind state, the basic meaning of the word upekkha is looking over or looking on from above. And as a Brahmavihara, it manifests as abandoning attachment towards beings or abandoning an agenda about how other beings are in more modern language. So it's the experience of equanimity is naturally peaceful. It's much more subtle and refined than the other Brahmaviharas and offers us a stability of heart and balance no matter what. This non-reactivity is the cause of a great amount of resilience. It's quite a beautiful state. And please remember, it is, of course, connected. It's connected with the beings for whom we radiate upekkha, and it is associated with wisdom. The proximate cause for upekkha to arise is seeing ownership of action. So that phrase I suggested using, kamasaka, literally means, as you know, ownership of action, which is why it's such a wonderful phrase, because we just are directed right there to that proximate cause for upekkha as a Brahmavihara. So the far enemy of Brahmavihara, of Upekkha as a Brahmavihara, the opposite of that is any form of partiality or resentment. So any form of attachment or pushing away, no matter how subtle. These are the opposites of Upekkha as a Brahmavihara, so they're easy to see, they're easy to notice. It's not possible to have successfully cultivated equanimity and still feel these. And the purification of this practice reveals these qualities of mind to us if they are there, not noticed. More than one person today in the reporting mentioned, oh my goodness, I've seen so much subtle attachment. Please know this is not a failure of the practice. This is success. You're seeing something you didn't notice before. It's great. Mm-hmm. And this far enemy is, of course, what gets purified in the practice. So the near enemy is much more subtle, of course. It's indifference. Based in not knowing faults and virtues, we have this diluted balance about other beings. And this kind of diluted balance is really common in the world. We don't want to connect with what bothers us about somebody. And so we say, so-and-so did such and such, but I'm okay with that. So this kind of indifference is not equanimity. This also gets purified. And an associated quality of mind or experience with this is needing some kind of story about somebody or some kind of understanding about them to connect. So Upekkha as a Brahmavihara requires that we connect directly, not through story or projection, but just understanding that person, like me, wants to be happy. That's in the background. And that person, like me, is experiencing ownership of action, causes, and conditions. A couple of people mentioned today how different this practice feels to them than the other Brahmaviharas. And this makes total sense. So to put Upekkha in context, in the context of the four Brahmaviharas, I want to say a little bit about this. So very practically, when we cultivate them, when we're cultivating metta, we say, may this person be happy, may they be well, may they be peaceful. This is the foundational Brahmavihara, and it's quite a general wish. It's not a specific wish. Mudita and karuna are much more specific. So karuna is that quality of metta that extends towards the suffering of beings. Mudita is that quality of metta that extends towards their good fortune. So karuna connects with dukkha and wishes that beings be free from that. Mudita connects with sukha, good fortune, and wishes that this lasts a long time or rejoices in this. As we cultivate these, we need to let go of a desire for a particular outcome, but to still have that wish. So may you be happy anyway, even if you're not. That wish can still be expressed, even if happiness is not possible. Likewise with karuna and mudita. So in the background, that quality of equanimity that is able to let go of outcome is being developed. And because we go through different categories of beings and going to all beings, the quality of equanimity towards beings is being developed in that way as well. So when we have successfully cultivated each of the first three Brahmaviharas completely, that Brahmavihara doesn't differ depending on what beings it's being directed towards. So the Brahma Vihara for an enemy is the same as for ourself or for all beings. Even without cultivating upekkha, this is a profound amount of equanimity. However, there is still the extension of well-wishing. So may you be happy. May you be free from suffering. May your happiness continue. This well-wishing itself comes with just a little bit of attachment, or it can. And this is very, very subtle. So abandoning, as it says in the Visuddhimagga, any interestedness of may he be happy or free from suffering. Because we are so used to the other Brahma Viharas, when we start cultivating upekkha, this feels very, very strange. We don't quite know how to do this practice. Before I go on with more practicalities of that, I want to give you a metaphor, which I think helps describe this feeling. So in the text, metta is described as like the love of a mother for a helpless infant. And any of you who have children can probably viscerally remember this experience of just so much well-wishing that this child be okay. Nothing's wrong with the baby, but you have to take care of it. This is like metta. Karuna is likened to a mother of a child who is ill. And of course, wanting to do anything so that the child is healthy again. Mudita is likened to a mother of a child it says in the text, in the prime of youth, and who is doing very well. So that quality of heart that rejoices in the good fortune of this child. And then upekkha is likened to the love of a mother for a grown adult who no longer is involved in her child's affairs, and of course who is at ease with that. And so the child just is living their life and everything is fine, or it's not. But there is this understanding that they're living their life and my job is done. You see from these examples or these metaphors how different those two things are. The quality of uninvolved but connected balance, which is upekkha, and the quality of really involved care, which is the other three. So when we cultivate upekkha, we have to get used to this sense of space. And what is being emphasized, one of the things that is emphasized in this practice that comes really into the foreground, we see it really clearly, is that we're cultivating upekkha in our own hearts. Of course, this applies to the other Brahma Viharas as well. You know that very well. But in upekkha, it's really obvious. So we have to get used to that experience of spacious connectedness, spacious, uninvolved connectedness, and get used to connection without story and without projection, as I was saying before. Because no matter what the other person's story is, no matter what our stories and projections are, it's all about balance. And the traditional phrase, kamasaka, is not a wish for the other person. It's just the facts of life that applies equally to us and to the other person. So this, of course, is a very different feeling. Upekkha practice, as the Visuddhimagga says, we abandon interest in outcome. And the upekkha practice really weans us off our dependence on stories and, again, of course, about outcome. So somebody in the interviews was saying today, and I thought it was really a good description of how this can feel at first. They said, it feels like a void, just an emptiness. So there are two main challenges here we face. So first, when at the outset, when we begin this practice, there's basic connection without the story. Because of course we start with the neutral person. But somebody today mentioned when they cultivate metta for the neutral person, it's much easier than upekkha for the neutral person. There's much less with the metta sense of a void. Because in the metta, there's that well-wishing. In the upekkha, there's just kamasaka, kamasaka, kamasaka. There's nothing at all for clinging to land on. And this feels very uncomfortable at first. And so it's the development of connection without any story, but also the development of connection without knowing any outcome. And really, the outcome is unimportant. This is very clear with the Upekkha practice. So it's these two challenges we face. So it purifies really subtle clinging. And because it's just a fact of life, it applies to us as much as it applies to other beings. And at first, as you're doing in the practice right now, the only thing you need to do is just observe this clinging if it arises. Let it be on the side and just keep going with the practice. Because as with the other Brahma-vihara practices, not only is there purification of clinging, but there's the development of inclination and the development of habit. And here's another place where we run into a little bumpiness, because the habits we develop cultivating the other Brahma-viharas are very different. Because we are habituated to connecting with that well-wishing of some sort. With the metta phrase, the karuna phrase, the mudita phrase, may you be happy, or whatever in each case. So having done the other Brahma Viharas, we're really much more used to direct well-wishing. And this is another place where we feel a little lost, because kamasaka, what to do? We feel like we're floating in space. So what this does is it develops a whole new, much more purified way of relating to beings that doesn't depend on anything. And a really much deeper level of trust in the practice. This is an incredibly impersonal quality of mind. It's associated with wisdom. So it has that sense of not being sticky. There's nothing juicy there for us to land on. Once we get used to that, it feels like a really profound gift. Already people are describing how much of a relief it is to not have to be concerned with the business of other people, but to still care, not to be disconnected. It opens us up to really a profoundly deep understanding of how similar we all are as beings. Common humanity and common beingness. This is quite a wonderful opening of the heart. And just as with the other Brahma Viharas, we need certain qualities of heart to undertake this training, this inclination, and this purification. The first is patient persistence and willingness. Reactivity will arise. This is the purification. Attachment to beings will arise. Aversion to beings will arise. And it can even be directed to the practice. Gentle discipline, just gentle persistence. Start again, over and over again. All of us have habits of navigating in this complicated world with beings we're attached to and beings we don't like. If we don't have the habit of dwelling in aversion or attachment, often the habit is simply to disconnect. When you think of how it feels to be in a really crowded situation, a big crowded train station, for example, and how you just kind of put a bubble around yourself, that's the kind of disconnection that we purify here. So that's the purification that can come. We can feel this, the purification of the near enemy. The purification of the far enemy is the habits we have of aversion or attachment. So all of these will come up at some point or another. When developing new habits, old habits fight back. This is rule number one in the practice. So developing patient good humor about this is essential. The only way we can progress in this practice is to fail in this practice and to keep going. So we're in for a ride. Buckle up, everybody. Put on your seatbelt. But it's a beautiful journey. It really is. It will ease your life in ways you can't imagine. And the constant inclination to equanimity, even though it's specifically about beings, also changes the Vipassana practice. We're inclining again and again and again to both wisdom and balance. So let me conclude by wishing that we all have the good humor and patience and quiet persistence to deepen in this practice and understand the depth of upekkha towards all beings. Thank you for your kind attention, everybody. I wish you a wonderful evening.